So let's look at some of the teacher and student responsibilities. So I use some analogies in my class to help reinforce this idea of what class looks like. So I like to tell students I'm the construction worker building a road. And I'm building a road, and this road is for people to be able to drive along. Now it's going to start out as a very simple type of road, and by the end it might be a mountain road, or it might be a road that goes through a really crazy area like a canyon or something, and there's no guardrails. Perhaps it's a off-road. It's not even an actual paved road by the end, and students need to be able to drive in that rough terrain. Regardless, it's the idea that I'm building this process, and it's the student's job to be the driver. They have to get in the car, they have to start the car, they have to put on their seatbelt, and then they have to use the gas and the brake pedal along with the steering wheel and all of the other instruments within the vehicle to drive along the road. But it's their job to drive along the road. It's my job to build that road for them. So I use that because I can show students that I've created the website with all of the tasks. And you can use the same idea, that you've created the website with all of the tasks. It's their job to actually go through as the student and be a driver, actually engage in all of those opportunities. That's their responsibility, and that helps build their executive functioning. I also like to use the analogy of the students being a builder. So I guess that makes us teachers as something like being like the home supply store, like a Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, a Menards. But we have the materials, and the students are then building their house. Now, I explained to them how important it is that they have a foundation in their house before they build any walls. That's a really important part of building a house. And once they have their walls, then they can start thinking about their roof. But not to put a roof on a foundation, because you need to be able to stand under the roof. So you need some walls to lift the roof up. And at the end, if you want to maybe add in some essentials like a door and maybe a window, those are going to be important things to add. But if you wanted to add like a fireplace, that's something extra. Or maybe you wanted to have some sweet little rain chains that slow down the rain as it comes off your roof. That's also extra stuff as well. As well as maybe like some fancy steps or a front deck. That's all extra things that you can add onto your house, but you would never want to start with those items. You'd want to have your house before you build those extra items. And as you can probably see, you can relate that very simply to the green circle, blue square, and black diamond and double black diamond tasks that the ski slope model provides. And that you must start with the foundation, followed by the walls, then the roof, before you add all that extra stuff. Now, overall, as a teacher in the classroom, what that's looking like is that you are really something I like to call the gatekeeper. Now, I like to call myself a gatekeeper because our job here is to either provide more challenges or less challenges or meet students where they are. And it's our job to know where students are so that we can really be there for them. So as a gatekeeper, I then guess the opposite of that for students would be something like they're the seeker of the knowledge. They're the ones that need to get out and get after it. But I want to focus more on this idea about being the gatekeeper, because this is really what I find myself doing as a teacher. And since you are all teachers, I want to help empower you to give you some ideas of what it looks like in the classroom from our perspective. One thing I'm doing consistently is that I'm monitoring the level up quizzes. So I use a common format or a common sheet with conditional formatting, so that as students turn in their level up quiz and hit submit, it will actually show up. And let's say that I have a student here, student A, that gets a 9 out of 10. Well, that score would show up along with all of their answers as well in that Google Sheet. Then it would show that they attempted again, and maybe this time they get an 8 out of 10, and it shows all of their answers. If I see that student continuing to try over and over again as I look at this Google Sheet, I might notice that they're not really consistent here. And so then I'll go and actually talk to the student. That's me being a gatekeeper saying, hey, this is too much, too many tries, too many attempts. You're missing something that's really critical and it's not consistent. So let's go and meet with that student so that we can help them get over the thing that they're not quite understanding, or at least show them where to look to find the resources to complete that level up quiz. Also, that level up quiz, when they do finally get a 10 out of 10 using conditional formatting, if that is a student, it will actually highlight that student as being green, meaning that they got it done. So that gives me the indicator that student is finished with their tasks in the green circle or the blue square or the black diamond, and I can quickly look at my gradebook to see if that is true. It's also a great opportunity to recognize students. As the gatekeeper, we want to make sure students are continuing to move along. So providing some of that encouragement and stoke along the way is also really important. So I like to give students a little shout out when they get it done, especially if it's like maybe their first try or second try, something to kind of give them an uplift after getting that completed. Now, once they get their level up quiz complete on the website, it tells them to move their magnet. In my classroom, I have a board in the front of the room that has all the students' names. As I've already told you in these videos, they move their magnet into the region that corresponds with where they are on the website. Now that's another area where I get to be gatekeeper, because if I see a student come up here and they move their magnet from green circle to blue square and I haven't gotten their level up quiz yet, I know that I can go talk to that student and we can figure out where they are in the unit and I can help them get back on track. I also like to throw some challenges. Or, for example, as I've discussed in the past in another video, I have a page on my classroom website that I call SciFlix, as a knockoff of Netflix. But SciFlix are just YouTube videos that I find that I put on the website that relate to the content we're learning. So I like to throw challenges or my SciFlix videos to those students that are speeding ahead. If they're going way, way faster than the rest of the class, or if they're just flying through assignments because maybe they did them all as homework, or if they just have a ton of extra time. These are things that are not extra work, but they're extensions on what we're learning that help enhance and give the students even more depth on top of what they're already being done to do or asked to do. One way I do throw a challenge at students that are moving ahead is, as a science teacher, if we're doing a science experiment, perhaps they get done with a science experiment and they have plenty of extra time and they're maybe really excited about it, or whatever the situation may be, I may modify, just on the fly there, I may modify the experiment for the student and ask them to try it in a different way. Or I may try to ask them to confirm the results, or I'll have them work with another group. So you can decide what type of or flavor of challenge is best for the students as they're kind of flying ahead. But another thing is, as a gatekeeper, we need to be the primary motivator. Now, that's because not all students are flying ahead. Some are just slacking behind and they're just happy getting the green circle completed, and they have a fixed mindset. So it's really important that we're there with them, that we help encourage them along the way, and that we're monitoring students in our class to make sure that they have the freedom to work, but they don't have so much freedom that they spend their time in social hour. As we know, that can happen. A little hack I like to do is that if I see their fingers are just hovering on the arrow keys on the side of their keyboard, I'd like to just remind them, hey, please don't play games over there. And hopefully that at least lets them think that I know what's going on in their computer, because my assignments don't require fingers only on the arrow keys. So that's a way that just I look around and I monitor the classroom in a very formative type way to see who's not quite on task, who's not doing the tasks as they're being asked on the website. And then that's my opportunity to then go meet with those students and try to figure out where they're at. And also maybe they just are confused or need some help along on one of those assignments. So whether you're throwing challenges or being the motivator, it's a really important thing that we know where the students are so that we can then be that motivator or the gatekeeper throwing some challenges. Now the students that are in the middle, then the idea of being gatekeeper here is just to meet them where they are with our intro talks. So we should be engaging with those students in those intro talks especially, and just encouraging those students as they go and being there for just any type of questions they have as they move along the way. So it's really a different style of teaching. There's a lot more opportunities to meet one-on-one with students since you're not in front of the classroom giving all of the directions for every assignment. Those intro talks then become your opportunity to give some of those lectures or tell stories or share the news with your students, but also to address patterns and misconceptions. So that's going to be another way that you can be a gatekeeper here, is if you see a lot of students getting stuck or hung up on certain things, then in those intro talks you can clarify that for the students. One other area that I use as a gatekeeper is the notebooks. Now, the notebooks are my version of paper and pencil in the classroom, where I ask students to take notes, and I want to make sure they have the notes, but I'm not checking every single word, or there is no like wrong answer. Well, there is a wrong answer. They must get the correct definition down. So it's just either right or wrong. So a lot of things that are just either right or wrong, I'm checking for completion and not depth. I have students put into their notebook, and that gives me a chance to be able to check in with them and kind of get an idea of what they're doing and what their work ethic looks like on paper and pencil. It's awesome as a gatekeeper because if students have really sloppy notes and they're just scribbling things down really quick, I'll ask them to reread their notes, or if they can't do that, then I'll ask them to retake their notes. Or on occasion, I will have them just kind of put some more effort into their notes or expand upon some of the ideas that they have in their note pages. Again, it's an opportunity to be a gatekeeper, to keep the students accountable and making sure that they're actually meeting the expectations that you have set out. The final thing that we've talked about that's another aspect of being a gatekeeper is just the product of having an S and a U on the assignment grades, a satisfactory or an unsatisfactory grade. As a gatekeeper, if students are, struggling with spelling, you could give them that unsatisfactory if you want them to focus on the spelling. If you want them to focus more on adding units to the numbers that they're providing, then you could also use that score to help them focus on that one aspect. So it's really a way that you can monitor and provide a really easy way for students to know whether or not they need to revise their work. Is this S or the U? And you can ask them to continue to revise with the way that the assignments are set up in an unlimited number of times, which allows you to, again, be a gatekeeper to make sure that students are meeting the expectations. So the students are like the drivers or the builders. We are the gatekeepers as teachers. And a lot of the time, it's a lot of meeting with students one-on-one to help them out, and also doing a lot of grading at the computer so that students can get timely feedback. So you've created a unit, you've taught the ski slope analogy to your class, you begin the unit as a class, you identify and reinforce those teacher and student responsibilities. Don't forget to continue to explain and revisit the grading, especially as the checkpoints kind of come along. And then when it's all said and done, you might want to do that summative assessment at the very end. And then time to begin Unit 2. Now, in order for that to happen, that means that during this whole unit is when you are planning Unit 2. So if your first unit is 3 weeks long, then you have those 3 weeks to work on Unit 2. If it's 4 weeks, then you have enough time to work. You have 4 weeks to work on Unit 2 and so on. So when you start a unit, though, don't forget it must be complete before you give it to the students, because you will be amazed at what the students do in a day or what they get through. And it's important that we're prepared, because the time is to connect with students, not to plan while we're in class, to try to stay ahead. Well, that is all that we have in this video. And hopefully this gives you some direction as to what it takes to actually get the ski slope model introduced to your students in your classroom. That's all for now. I'll catch you on the next.